Good morning, and thank you for having me. I lost my little sister, Ruth, 15 weeks and 6 days ago. But in fact, I lost her as I'd always known her, happy, confident, caring, strong, determined, 54 days before that, when 3 Ofsted inspectors pronounced on frankly flimsy grounds that Ruth's leadership and therefore her school were inadequate. The injustice of that one-word judgment destroyed Ruth's career, her world, and her sense of self. Ruth and I were both pupils at Caversham Primary School ourselves in the 1970s and absolutely loved it. And this is why, in 2010, after 4 years as deputy, Ruth took on the challenge of headship of a school that everyone has always considered outstanding, because she loved the school. Since Ruth's death, I have been contacted by many of her former classmates at Caversham Primary. One shared the following memory with me that I'd like to share with you. Ruth was the most impressive person I went to primary school with. The most intelligent, the hardest working, the neatest, and the best behaved. I remember her so well, finishing her times tables before I had even drawn the grid. This isn't just a good description of Ruth as a primary school pupil. It also gives you, I hope, a sense of the adult that Ruth became. Descriptions of me, her big sister at the time, are a bit different. Mr. Shanks, the head teacher, once described me as tough as old boots, much to the hilarity of my classmates. In a reference for secondary school, he wrote, "Julia has many friends, but can be a bit bossy. And Julia has a strong sense of right and wrong." Clearly, Mr. Shanks knew each of the pupils in his care as well as Ruth would 40 years later. My family's grief at our loss is intense, painful, overwhelming, and complicated by the nature and circumstances of Ruth's death. Going public about these circumstances and the link with the Ofsted inspection of Ruth's school has added new layers of complication, pain, and outrage to that grief. So going public has not been without great personal cost. But we had to speak out. We had to speak out because Ruth was not the first head teacher to take her life after an Ofsted inspection. Carol Woodward in 2015, Helen Mann, 2012, Irene Hogg, 2008, Jed Holmes, 2007. The list goes on. Research by Hazards Charity shows there have been at least 10 sudden deaths of head teachers and teachers with an Ofsted inspection explicitly cited in coroner's reports. This means Ofsted had ample warnings about their risks, the risks their inspections pose. And for each of these deaths, how many others' mental health, careers, reputations, and lives have been devastated by Ofsted's fatally flawed system? We had to speak out because we want no other family to experience the pain that we have felt. We had to speak out because a terrible injustice has been done to my sister. Ruth was not an inadequate head teacher. In 2019, Ruth invited Ofsted into Caversham Primary School to be part of a pilot for Ofsted's new inspection framework. She told parents it would be a useful exercise for their school improvement work. She believed in accountability. The pilot inspection team overseen by the Chief Inspector for Schools herself, gave Ruth glowing feedback, including praising the staff as vigilant and the safeguarding leads as tenacious. I noticed, when interviewed by the BBC last Sunday, Amanda Spielman chose not to mention her own visit to Caversham Primary School, or the fact she had actually met my sister, Ruth. In 2021, the Department for Education awarded Ruth a National Professional Qualification for Executive Leadership. Last autumn, shortly before the inspection, Ruth was elected chair of the Berkshire West Children's Safeguarding Partnership Board. In parent feedback to the Ofsted inspectors last November, 98% of parents of children at Caversham Primary said their children were happy at the school. 97% that their children felt safe at the school. By any other measure, Ruth was an exceptional, inspirational, highly regarded school leader. Yet, in interview last week, Amanda Spielman stated that the inadequate Ofsted judgment of Caversham Primary School was sound. At the very least, these glaring inconsistencies warrant further investigation. Surely. At the very least, we need a deep dive into the intolerable pressures facing head teachers that mean they might not always be able to keep on top of every last little piece of paperwork and update. Recent cross-European research has shown that, I quote, Ofsted inspections cause teacher stress and aren't backed up by strong evidence. They go on to say, there's no reason why Ofsted couldn't change the high-stakes nature of inspections. Things could be done differently. I say things must be done differently. I'm not an expert in primary or secondary education, nor in schools' inspections. But as the sister of an exceptional head teacher who was broken by the current Ofsted inspection system, I can say which features were particularly damaging to her and to so many others. The single word judgment. The use of safeguarding as a limiting judgment. The focus on a named individual, the head teacher, and the public nature of that focus. The lengthy delay between inspection and publication of the report. An intolerable 54 days and still counting in Ruth's case. And the inhumane confidentiality requirement. During those 54 days, all over the Christmas break, Ruth was expressly forbidden from discussing the Ofsted judgment with her staff, her peers, her friends, or even her family. I confess, and this will haunt me for the rest of my life, that I had not fully appreciated how fatally destructive a poor Ofsted judgment could be to a dedicated head teacher like Ruth. Since going public, however, I've been contacted by countless head teachers who do understand, only too well, quite how despairing and hopeless Ruth must have felt. I didn't fully appreciate this because I have never been a head teacher. As head teachers, you recognise, as Ruth did, the need for accountability and the value of a constructive, supportive system of quality assurance and improvement. You also understand that children's welfare, your primary concern, is not best served by burnt-out, traumatised teachers and school leaders. But who safeguards you and your staff? Here are some single-word judgments that have been levelled at Ofsted inspections by head teachers like yourselves who have contacted me. Arbitrary, subjective, unsubstantiated, callous, punitive, evil, inhumane, brutal, traumatic. Yet Ofsted self-assessment, supported by Gillian Keegan, remains that everything is fine. Publicly, my family has been offered condolences from the very same people who continue to defend the indefensible system that destroyed Ruth. We don't want warm words, thoughts, and sympathies. My family wants and deserves sincere answers to our legitimate questions and concerns. My family wants and deserves urgent, meaningful actions. We're not placated with the few tweaks around the edges that have been offered so far. So what next? I call again on Ofsted and the government to show some humanity and sensitivity, to recognise the urgency and the severity of our concerns. If Ofsted and the government continue to refuse to pause inspections, and certainly the optimal moment for doing that has passed, then I call on them to commission an urgent, independent review of Ofsted's framework, systems and culture. Expose Ofsted to the transparency, scrutiny and accountability you require of others. So what if Ofsted still won't budge? Then it's up to you, head teachers and teaching unions, to make Ofsted budge, to undermine their culture of fear from within and from below. So what can you do? Teaching unions, please, Ruth's death must be a watershed moment in terms of action and change, not just words. So keep the pressure up. Support head teachers to stand up to Ofsted. Head teachers, please, keep speaking out, keep writing individually and collectively, sharing your own experiences of Ofsted inspections and your own suggestions of more humane, supportive, evidence-based alternatives. What else can you do? And I think this was said yesterday. Take down your banners. If you haven't already done so, remove all references to Ofsted and Ofsted ratings from your school website and promotional materials. Take down your banners and write to parents to tell them that you're doing this and why you're doing it. We all know parents deserve better than misleading, dangerous single-word judgments, so stop promoting them. Galvanise, mobilise the parent voice against these flawed systems. So head teachers, take down your banners. What else can you do? Much has been made of the fact that many Ofsted inspectors are current and former head teachers. How many of you in this room serve as Ofsted inspectors as well as being head teachers? No doubt you're doing your best, but you're working within a flawed, inhumane system. So follow the examples of Martin Hanbury, Andrew Morrish and others. Hand in your badges. Refuse to be complicit in Ofsted's reign of terror. Inspectors, hand in your badges. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be doing this. I want to be at home with the rest of Ruth's family, grieving our dreadful loss. That's what I want to do. And clearly that's what Ofsted want me to do too. But I'm not giving up. I can't give up. I'm still driven by that sense of the strong sense of right and wrong that made me stand up to playground bullies at primary school. I won't give up until Ofsted is radically reformed to place the welfare of teaching staff as well as of children at its heart. So please, stand up for Ruth, stand up for yourselves and each other, stand up to Ofsted, Speak out, take down your banners, hand in your badges. Ofsted must be reformed.